should focus then to the city gas distribution space. As the exclusive marketing rights of city gas distributors in certain areas come to an end, the Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board, or the PNGRB board, has proposed opening up these areas for open bidding. Now, they've also recommended two formulae that will allow distributors to keep their rights based on select calculations. Let's understand all this and the dynamics involved. We're joined now by Ravichandran, Senior Vice President and Group Head of Corporate Ratings at ICRA. Welcome to the show, Ravi, and very good to have you on. Just to get a clearer idea, the PNGRB has formulated a concept paper to determine a process essentially to open up these city gas distribution networks to competition. How will this play out? What are the issues that need to be resolved in order to accomplish this?
Yeah, good morning to you and all the viewers, and thanks for having me on the show. PNGRB has come out with this concept paper in order to bring in competition, in the existing cities where incumbents have been, active for a couple of decades. So, in order to, bring in competition, they have to come out with certain guidelines as to how to give access and what tariff any third-party marketer would have to pay to the incumbent operator. So in this regard, they have proposed two formulas. Number one, based on normative principles. As per the first approach, the players would be eligible for 14% return on equity, and other cost elements with regard to operating cost and depreciation, etc., would be added to the the base. So that is the total revenue which they will get. So in this process, 14% ROE is what the incumbent should be getting. The second approach, it is based on bidding. It could be online bidding, subject to certain reserve prices. So the reserve price could be set by either the regulator or the concerned incumbent operator. So either way, we believe the tariff would more or less be determined based on the normative principles. So if we do the workings, according to our analysis, if incumbent operators were to give their network on open access basis, they should be able to still retain about 60 to 70% of the contribution which they are currently enjoying, because network tariff is fairly attractive because it ensures 14% ROE on a pre-tax basis is very high at about 21%. So that would enable them to to enjoy certain part of the margins. But the key thing is that they will lose part of the the commodity margin or marketing margin. That apart, key challenges would be the fact that there are certain regulatory, there are certain litigations which have been there earlier, especially with regard to IGL and the regulator, wherein while the Supreme Court came out with clear-cut views on that particular instance, there are certain grey areas with regard to the powers of the regulator to fix tariff for the for the open access. So that has to be resolved first. And secondly, even if the regulations were to be in place, the affected CGD companies would again litigate and they could stall the the process. And third one, there are certain practical difficulties as to how to determine the excess capacity in a particular region. And you need to have a lot of contextual changes. So these are the challenges one has to overcome before competition becomes a reality in India.
All right, point taken. So in essence, this is opening it up to competition, but in the very near term, this will not have that kind of competitive, at least, impact on the incumbents. But that said, would you say this is a net negative as far as the incumbents are concerned, and who would it affect the most? Names like IGL, MGL, which would be the names that you would be tracking on the back of this?
See, in any case, in the near term, we don't foresee any concerns, for the incumbent companies. If at all, all the challenges are overcome, then only over the medium term competition would, would start to hit margins. And even in that case, companies which are exposed more to the bulk consumers, that is, who are on the PNG industrial side, those companies could be affected because, it is easy to take away customers, by offering slight discount over the incumbent operator, because the industrial customers are highly price sensitive. So it is important to look at, companies with high PNG industrial concentration. And second set of players would be affected would be those who have high concentration on CNG to large customers like State Transport Corporation. There again, it is possible, to lure away the customers. So in this regard, relatively speaking, Gujarat Gas and and IGL perhaps would be relatively be affected. But even then, as I mentioned, those would play out only over the medium to long term. And apart from these players, in the new cities where the regulator has given the licenses, where players have bid very aggressively on the tariff side, in as low as 1 paisa per meter cube, 1 paisa per kg. There the competition could be enormous, and the incumbent companies will be affected a lot. If third-party competition were to emerge, then even the whatever contribution which the existing operators will be getting, that will not be the case in the other cities. That is where one has to be careful about. But those competition would emerge over next 5 to 10 years, because it takes a lot of time to build up volumes in the new cities. So those would be the positives from the city gas distribution companies' point of view.
All right, just a final question. Do you think there is any possibility that existing players may challenge the final regulation in courts? There could be a delay to this proposal being rolled out, and do you also expect that down the line OMCs will finally benefit out of this move?
Yeah, with regard to the first question, I believe that some of the companies could approach courts and try to stall the process, because this industry is known for litigations, and many areas have been contested. So one can expect similar kind of response in this instance as well, as and when the final guidelines are approved by the regulator. With regard to the second question, whether OMCs will be interested, I would think so, because for them it's a natural choice. Already they are present in several cities. They do market natural gas to bulk customers, and also in some of the cities. So they, in any case, many of the CGD companies, they are using the existing network of OMCs for co-locating the CNG dispensers. So just there's a synergy involved if they were to get into this third-party marketing. But one mitigant for the companies, existing companies, is that they already signed long-term agreements. When I say long-term, it could be for 3 to 5 years, which will bind the CGD, OMC companies to stay with the CGD companies for some time. Maybe after that, once these agreements expire, then at that time possibly OMCs could enter this space. Another mitigant could be the fact that many of these OMCs are also minority shareholders in some of the leading CGD companies. So they wouldn't want to encroach upon their own sister company, and affecting their business. So these are the mitigants. But having said that, OMCs could be interested in this space.
All right, and just a word on the kind of impact we could see on the PNG segment, because the impact of third-party competition to existing operators could be more pronounced in this segment. Could you quantify that for us? What kind of impact are we looking at?
See, in the normal course, as I mentioned earlier, 60 to 70% of the contribution could be retained by the incumbents if they were to offer their network for competition. But in the case of industrial customers, as such the margins are very thin. They go more by the volume. So if the entire volumes are taken away, it could result in impact on the margins. So I would think if we were to look at on the EBITDA side, the hit could be as high as 70-80% in the case of industrial customers. But in the case of other kind of segments, CNG and all that, impact will be slightly lower, perhaps about 40%, 50% at EBITDA level.
All right, Mr. Ravichandran, we'll leave it at that. Thanks very much for joining in, helping us understand the various dynamics at play here. So it is game-changing as far as the city gas distribution network is concerned going forward, but nothing in the near term. We can also perhaps expect some amount of litigation on the back of this proposal coming in from the regulatory board as well. But let's shift focus then. Dilip Bilkon